So, Betty already introduced me, so this part is already done. Thank you. And so thank you all for coming to see this presentation. I confess that I was really surprised when I realized that I was the awardee. And I mean, let's start a little bit talking. Wait. The mouse.
Sometimes, yeah, let's just see. Let's try it.
So, I brought this cartoon just to show you that sometimes the process of writing a dissertation can be something very challenging, very difficult, and particularly in my case, I really identified myself with this because I took 7 years to finish my dissertation due to many circumstances. But I know that when you start a process like this, you never know when you are going to finish, how this will be finished. So frustration is something that you have to do several times when you're a PhD student. So my advice is never give up, keep doing, keep trying, and one day you will finally, oh my God. Be able to finish your PhD, which for me, it was my first moment of happiness during the 7 years when I was definitely able to finish this work. I was really happy. And obviously the second moment of happiness was when I noticed that I was the awardee of 2015, and more recently I could publicate. Some people are able to make publications during the process, so it was not my case. But I'm happy with this outcome and thankful for everybody that supported me. So let's talk a little bit about the dissertation itself. Why did I do what I did? I mean, so when I started my PhD, I was concerned, as today, I was concerned about the high rates of deforestation in the Amazon. And so at this time in 2007, we were concerned about the command control tools, like monitoring, creation of protected areas, that they were not being enough to definitely stop deforestation in the region. And so other tools were spreading, like famous for environmental services and RED. And then I got fascinated with this economic incentive. Oh, I should study this. And so the main goal of my dissertation was to make an analysis about the feasibility of these tools, RED and PACE. And I wanted to understand the degree that these tools could contribute to deforestation control of the Amazon. And, well, I noticed, I realized that a new initiative, innovative tool of RED was on the point to be implemented in Mato Grosso, which was called the Cotriguaçu Sempre Verde project. So this was the municipality that I studied. The name is Cotriguaçu. And in 2009, 2010, this region, Cotriguaçu plus more 8 municipalities, they were the last remaining of forests in Mato Grosso. And then the state government saw RED as a great opportunity to preserve this forest, this area, and also to had some money to develop this the region, so it would an alliance between development and preservation. And then ICV, which is an NGO, they lead the project, the Contribuição Sempre Verde project, along with other institutions such as ANC, the Network Conservancy, the government, ONFE, and so they created the Contribuição project, Sempre Verde, and at the beginning the idea was to be a red initiative. But a few weeks before I was going to the field, I received a message from Renata. Oh, Raissa, I'm so sorry. Please don't mention red in your field work. We're not able to make cash compensations to the people, to the stakeholders involved. So try to adapt your field work to another, focus on something else, because the Contribuição project will have another shape. Oh, okay, thank you. And so I was going to the field, I had everything prepared to study peace and red, but peace and red was not prepared for me. And so the solution was to work with modeling and to work with other perspectives and projections. Let me explain a little bit how Contribuição is. It's a very diverse municipality in terms of stakeholders. So we can see here, we have an indigenous land, terra indígena escondido, which is responsible for 18% of the whole municipality. And in red, we can see deforestation, which is almost not happening in the indigenous land. Here, we have a state park, the Parque Nacional do Juruena, and also deforestation is not happening there. The blue squares are the private producers, the medium and large stakeholders, and the yellow squares are the rural settlers. We have three main rural settlements in Contribuição. So you can imagine how difficult it is for the implementers of the Contribuição project, Contribuição Sempre Verde project, to make actions, lines of action for each of these stakeholders, and to get everybody involved, and to get everybody contributing for this project, with which final goal of this to decrease deforestation in the municipality. And yeah, this graph also shows a little bit of the percentage of occupation. The rural settlers, they occupy 14% of the municipality and are responsible for deforestation of 52%. On the other hand, the large producers, they have 45% of occupation of the municipality, and they're responsible for 10% of deforestation. Of course, this was in 2008 or 2009. It's not an easy place to live. Contribuição has, at least 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I think still the same. It has no infrastructure in terms of health and education, especially for the rural settlers. They don't have access to basic services, not easily, and transportation it's very difficult. And the main commodities that they are working with are cattle ranching and some crops. And of course, all of these provoke out-migration and deforestation since the beginning of the municipality. And then, considering that I had to change a little bit the focus of my dissertation, I focused on 3 main subjects of analysis. First, I would like to understand if we implement a PACE, social and ecological system, in this complex system, focusing here, in the first one, focusing on the on the rural settlers, would PACE, famous for environmental services, be able to improve the resilience of the system? Then the methods that I used were adaptive cycle and panarchy to analyze the systems. And the second was, does Cotriguaçu has the preconditions to shelter a PACE initiative? And then I worked with economic analysis. I did some calculations about the opportunity cost of the population to preserve instead of being engaged in other economic activities such as cattle ranching and cropping. And I also made this analysis using socioeconomic data in the political context. I made many interviews with rural settlers, medium large producers, all the stakeholders involved in the implementation of the project. And the third analysis was also hypothetical, was related to the impacts of a PACE in a household level. And here I used the methodology from Professor Dr. Hildebrand. He's from University of Florida, and ethnographic linear programming is the name of this methodology. So my results, the first, regarding this resilience of the systems, I did 4 steps. I walked through 4 steps to reach my results. The first one was to build the historical timeline of the effect in Cotriguaçu. And the second one, then when I had the historical timeline, I identified the most important disturbance of the social and ecological system. And the first step was try to frame this historical timeline with the disturbances in the adaptive cycle model, which is a very strong model used mostly in ecological systems. That it's good to understand the disturbances and the process of regeneration. It's much more applied in the context of ecological systems. But I wanted to do this with the variable, with the social variable. And finally, I would like to see if PACE would be able to improve or to get better or worse the resilience capacity of this rural social and ecological system. So just in few words, these were the historical timeline, and then I defined the most important disturbances. And because with this we can see what type of decisions the stakeholders involved did. I mean, what took them to take these decisions on producing or on moving to other places. And finally, when I tried to put the historical timeline and to adapt this to put this in the adaptive cycle, the idea, it would be something like this: the process of the growth of my system, and then sort of a stabilization of the rural settlers. And sometimes, of course, they would have some disturbances, but after these disturbances, they would be able to reorganize themselves. It is like this in ecological systems. But adding so many social variables, unfortunately, I could not fit the adaptive cycle developed by Gunderson and Holling, because in all my phases, all of my phases, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, out-migration, also deforestation, was constant. And so the turnover of people is so high that I cannot think about a cycle. It's just they are like growing and evading and coming back again and going outside. So it's not a cycle, it's something that has a disruption and it starts again. And yes, I was frustrated at this time when I realized that it's not easy to make this social variable in this system. And finally, in terms of realizing if space could be able to improve this behavior or not, and considering that in Cotriguaçu, in the rural settlers of Cotriguaçu, outmigration and deforestation are the two most important issues, problems. If we implement a PACE, definitely PACE will not be able to deal with plagues or lack of infrastructure of market. It will be able to provide environmental services to increase the income of the families, and that's all. PACE is a complementary tool. It's not the solution for all the problems. And regarding deforestation, PACE, unfortunately, it's limited to, no contributions. Because monitoring, it's important for these projects, but in the case of Cotriguaçu, there are not too much monitoring or not too much alternatives to produce. Fortunately, the Cotriguaçu project is now, since the last 2 or 3 years, improving this. So some people are being able, some rural settlers are being able to work with agroforest systems due to the Cotriguaçu project. But at this time, it was not, the division was not like this. So my second analysis, I wanted to see if Cotriguaçu had the conditions to have a PACE issue there. And so a researcher called Sven Wunder from C4, he has been studying PACE since 10 years ago. And he established some important preconditions that a PACE initiative needs to have. So, informational preconditions, when you have to understand which environmental services you are providing. Economic, you need to know if the opportunity costs of these services of protecting this area is much higher, or if it is worth to preserve or to deforest. It's a personal decision. Cultural, the willingness to participate in PACE, institutional conditions, those are the 4 those established by Wunder, and I added additionality and social responsibility, which is also important for this initiative. Additionality, is the project going, this project going to add something in this local context? For example, will the situation improve if we don't have the project, or the situation will be better because of the project? So this is additionality, and also social responsibility. It's sort of an ethical behavior that we have to have. For example, are we going to pay? I showed at the beginning the large producers, they're responsible just 14% of the deforestation ongoing on Cotriguaçu. Is this social responsible to pay for these people and to leave the rural settlers aside? They won't receive because they are deforested. So these are also some conditions that are important for the success of a PACE initiative. And the result was that, the ideal would be the stakeholders had like higher grades in all of the conditions, but unfortunately, Cotriguaçu is still far from having the necessary preconditions for this, because, let me see, culturally, the medium large producers, they are very prepared to receive this, but the rural settlers, unfortunately, they are not yet, according to interviews, and they were not prepared to be concerned to receive. And in economic terms, the medium and large, the opportunity costs are very high. So why we cannot compensate this group of stakeholders. Social responsibility is the one that I was explaining. So if we pay for the medium and large, and the rural settlers are not pretty involved, it's not responsible in terms of fairness. So let's go to the third analysis. When I looked at this ethnographic linear programming, the goals here were to understand the impacts in a household from a livelihood perspective, and to project these effects if I pay people an amount smaller than the opportunity. Because there are some studies that say that no, you don't need to pay the exact amount of the opportunity. It makes sense then. If you pay a little bit less, they will accept. Instead of going to deforesting, to waste crops, they will prefer receiving a small amount of payments instead of having, going to other activities. And so to draw my model, I based this idea on the Brazilian forest law that states by law that in all the Amazon sites, the producers are able to deforest just only 20% of their areas. By law, 80% of the properties should be preserved. This is the law. And so, in my model, I was still making the families preserve 80% of their areas, and they will be able to produce in 10%, and the other 10% they would set aside to preserve essentially famous wildlife reserves. That's my idea. And when I saw, so in my model, the model to be viable should satisfy all the consumption needs for the families that I was studying. And so I went to my sample of 120 properties that I interviewed. And I discovered that these properties, only four properties, only 4 households were able to satisfy my model in terms of having more than 80% of the areas preserved. Oh my gosh, it's not enough at all. So let's in my model, let's draw a model where I will be paying for people that has between 7 and 80%. Let's pay for these people to reforest. So my sample doubled from 4 to 8, which is not too much, but it is so ethnographic in their program. It's acceptable to work on a small amount of sample because the amount of data is very exhaustive. So with these families, I interviewed more. I stay almost a week in their houses, so it's fine. And so I have now a sample of 8 people, 8 families. I draw 3 scenarios. The first one was that the people would be not receiving pays. They were just working 20% of their lands and preserving the other 80%. In the second scenario, I was putting aside 10%, so the other 20% would be preserved. Here, they would be able to deforest and receive pays according to the opportunity cost that I calculated in the second chapter. And here, it's the same, but I would be going to pay a smaller amount to this family in this scenario. And so the final result was that the majority of the model, except for the scenario, the first one, they were non-viable because when I run the model, I forgot to say at the beginning, but this model maximizes the income of the family. So my model, I put all the variables related to the food consumption, how many people live in the family, in the household, what are their main production, what are their crops, how much do they earn per year, and in which time, which periods of the year they work. And so the complex model where I put all the variables for consumption, production. And I add to this model the variable pace. And so the majority of the households just using pace, they were not viable because people would not be able to afford to satisfy their consumption without the forest, unfortunately, except for household 6 and household 7. And yes, and it's good to see that when they are viable in the base scenario, they are also viable if we pay a little bit less. They would be viable in these two models. And so the main conclusions of the whole work is that PES is not suitable to implement in the context of Cotriguaçu like it was, the way it was when I was studying this. Probably now it could be different. And first, because PES will only partially improve the resilience of the system. And second, because Cotriguaçu at this time did not fit all the criteria to implement a PES, and it will just slightly improve the livelihood systems in the context of the family. And these contributions are more to the literature PES. Currently, there is a large distance between the ideal PES and the PES that will exist. So I think literature, I'm sure that literature needs to be more flexible. Otherwise, we will never find the real PES like the ideal one. So the literature should be more flexible, and it's important for the proponents, for institutions that are implementing PES. It's important to better understand the local context. Why is it worth to implement PES in this place? How much will it cost? How much it will improve their livelihoods of these people? How much conflict will this provoke for people that are not receiving or are receiving? So it's expensive. We need to make some studies to implement this. And finally, it's important to understand if PES will improve the capacity to resist disturbances. And it's definitely PES can be implemented in some places and probably in others. So it's also a context issue. Finally, I would like to thank very much Dr. Marianne Schmink that supported me during this 7 years, 9 years now. Bob Bushbacher, that was also very supportive. Thank you. All the members of my committee, Claudia Romero, Dr. Hildebrand, Dr. Barnes, Dr. Betty, that I didn't know, and C4, all the institutions that I struggled with them a lot, my family. And thank you very much.